Hello everyone, in this video we'll be going over all the Phoenix Games PS2 releases. I've already done a PS1 version. If you want to check that out, there'll be a link in the description below. But yeah, this one I'll just be going over all 103 released games by Phoenix Games. And we'll go through them alphabetically, and due to the amount of games there is, I can't actually get them all on screen at once. So I'm not going to be able to do that, sorry, because I just don't have the space. Before we start, I just want to say, on the last video I had a comment from someone called Rebecca, and now if you're watching this, Rebecca, please get in touch, because when I click on the message there's actually nothing there, nothing shows. It's as if it's been deleted or something. But honestly, I'd love to get in touch with you and have a chat with you, or somebody who was involved with Phoenix Games or knew somebody from there. So I'm really interested to get in touch with you. So if you are watching this, please leave a comment below and I'll get in touch with you. But yeah, moving on, we're going to go through alphabetically, as I say. So starting off, we've got 21 card games. Now there are a couple of different covers, variants to this one, but it's basically just a collection of 21 different card based games, which, to be honest, it's quite a dull game. Even if you're into these sorts of card games, there's probably other discs out there that are going to give you much more enjoyment than this one. So, not the best one to start with, but there we have it. That is 21 card games. Next off, we have Animal Soccer World. Now, pretty much anyone who knows Phoenix Games is going to know what this game is, because this is probably the game that put them on the map for all the wrong reasons. And a debate that I bring up a lot, because this game and other games like it were released already on the PS1 by Midas Games, but for some reason it's Phoenix Games that gets all the flack for it. But yeah, these are obviously simple puzzle-based games like jigsaw puzzle and sliding squares. But then you get a cartoon on there as well by Dingo Pictures. And there's quite a few different versions of this, but they're all just reskins of the same thing with a different cartoon on. Next off, we have Arcade USA. Now this originally, it's two games. It's bowling and air hockey. Now originally this was going to have a pinball game as well, but for some reason they pulled it out of the game, and I believe they were going to try and make a pinball game on their own, but for some reason that never came to light. But yeah, that one's sealed. Next off, we have Arcade Action, 30 games. So this is a collection of little mini games. I mean, there's been some level of effort put into making it, but the games are not the greatest. I think this retailed originally for about $16.99, so at that price it probably wasn't so bad, to be honest. I mean, the mini golf game on there, and there's a couple of other games I can't remember. I think this is the one with a Frogger type game on, that was quite interesting, but in general, another not brilliant disc. Air Raid 3. Right, now this is actually an Atari license, and funnily enough, there doesn't seem to be an Air Raid 2. So I'm not quite sure what the idea behind that was, but it's a shoot 'em up. This is also a reskin of, is it here? Is it possibly Combat? Yes, it's a reskin of Combat Ace, just with different planes put in, and I believe the backgrounds might even still be the same. But yeah, I'll come back to that one in a minute. But yeah, this is actually one of the most printed Phoenix games out there. It had more production runs than most of the games. This one and the International Tennis game are the two most printed games out there by Phoenix, which have about 5 different runs on each that I'm aware of. So yeah, but this one was bundled with a lot of Atari box sets as well. You can find some sets with Metal Slug Anthology bundled in with this as well, so it seems Atari were quite keen to pump this out there. But the game itself isn't great, to be honest. I mean, if you're into stuff like, is it not Space Harrier, Top Gun and things like that. I can't think of the actual game I'm trying to think of, but games like Top Gun, if you're into that, you might like this, but there's not a lot to it really. Board Games Gallery, a bunch of little board games. The Snakes and Ladders in this is quite good actually, and the Ludo did have quite some fun. This isn't a bad disc actually if you're into puzzle games. It's not the greatest presented, but it does what it's said to do, and you know, it's quite fun. So yeah, if you can get it for a couple of quid and you're into this sort of thing, then it's worth checking out. Clumsy Shumsy. I believe this is the only iToy game that Phoenix did. I haven't noticed that any of the others are iToy compatible, but it's a bunch of games, 8 games, which I haven't actually played this disc yet. It's one of the only games that isn't on the channel, and if you do want to check out any of the gameplay videos, just go onto the channel and there's a specific Phoenix Games playlist, which most 99% of the PS2 games have gameplay video on there. But yeah, this seems quite interesting. So I do have a bunch of iToy games which I'll be testing out all together at some point. City Soccer Challenge. Now this is a pretty fun game, to be honest. A little 5-a-side football, and oh, hang on, you can have, oh, it's 11-a-side. I'm sure I only remember it being 5-a-side, but whatever, it's been quite a while since I played it. I just remember it being quite fun. Now this is actually originally going to be called Urban City Soccer, and before that it's actually part of the Kid Sports series. So there's Kid Sports Ice Hockey and Kid Sports Basketball. Not sure why they ditched the Kid Sports name for this one, but yeah, it's quite a fun little game. So is ice hockey and basketball. Caveman Rock, awesome little game, quite confusing but pretty interesting. It's like a colour match game, but you get loads of bonuses and options and stuff like that which help you out, but doesn't do a great job at explaining what anything does really, but it is quite interesting. I did have quite a bit of fun playing this one, and this is quite a hard one to find now. You will find Australian or Italian versions quite easily, but the UK version is quite difficult to come by. Cinderella. This is another one of the Dingo Productions puzzle games, so not really a lot to go over on that. It's just a reskin. Cool Shot Pool. This isn't a terrible pool game, but it's not a great pool game. There are quite a lot of pool games on the PS2, and to be honest, not that many of them are all that great. So this isn't like a terrible game. It's just another, you know, it's not. It's on par. It's on par with most of the others out there. So it's, you know, to say that it's not terrible. But yeah, it's got everything you could expect from a pool game. Combat Ace, which is the one we already mentioned, which is a reskin of Air Raid 3. Cartoon Kingdom is yet another Dingo Productions cartoon game. Car Wash Tycoon. This could have been something a lot more. Unfortunately, the game lasts pretty much as long as the tutorial, because once the tutorial's done, the full game only lasts about half an hour. So it's not that great, to be honest. But the game is quite fun, and doing the tutorial does take an hour or so. So there's a couple of hours gameplay here, but it's nothing that you're going to really want to come back to, which is a shame. If someone could like hack it and make the last level just like continually last, then you might be able to get some extra fun out of it in a few hours. But yeah, it seems to sort of end, and you seem to feel a bit underwhelmed. But yeah. Countryside Bears is another Dingo game, or Dingo cartoon based game. Crazy Golf. Now this is crazy. The colours in this game are just unreal. You can't really see from the box shots, but damn, it's like blinding colours, the most brightest colours in the world. But yeah, it's a crazy golf game where you play as a crazy dog, and it's quite difficult very early on. It like does not go easy on you at all. But yeah, it's quite an interesting one and quite a cheap one as well. So if you like Crazy Golf, which I do, then I would recommend checking this one out. Krabby Adventure, another pretty difficult one to find. And this is, I'm not sure what the original game is, but you basically just shoot colours at other colours. It's a bit like Puyo Puyo, is it? But in a different sort of format. But yeah, it's quite a decent little game, to be honest. Not really that spectacular for being on a PS2, as it is quite simple, but it is still enjoyable nonetheless. Chemist Tycoon, this is pretty much the same as Car Wash Tycoon, but obviously you're running a chemist. But yeah, it's the same sort of thing really. But it sort of misses a beat. Not terrible, but could have been more. But yeah, well, that was A to C, so let me go and get some more and we'll carry on. Right, next up we have Dalmatians 3, which is again another dingo cartoon based game. Then we have Doomsday Racers, which is a pretty dire racing game, to be honest. It's slow, sluggish and really stiff controls. Not a great racing game, and there are a couple of decent racing games by Phoenix. Dinosaur Adventure, once again another dingo game. Downhill Slalom, now this is quite upsetting because this could have been a really good game, but there's literally nothing to it. There's a few courses, but there's no competition, there's no CPU or anything. It's just you race to the end of the track and that's it, it's over. And it's a shame because this could have been really interesting. Dynamite 100, this is 100 little mini games, and they're quite uninteresting, to be honest. There's not a lot put into them. This probably would have been the most amazing compilation if it was on like the PS1 or something. Probably would have been respected better. I'm guessing they were trying to be on par with the Atari collection, because a lot of the games on here are just Atari rip-offs and styled in the most similar way. So I mean, if you're into Atari games, you might enjoy this. But me personally, and I did go through all 100 games, and it wasn't for me. This is also interesting because it's by Grabbit, and they were mainly a PC games manufacturer. D-Unit Drift Racing. Now this is even worse than Doomsday Racers. This is another game. In fact, I think it might just be a reskin of Doomsday Racers, but yeah, similar sluggish controls. Oh, there's my other copy, that's my open one. Deadeye Gym. Now, this is a reskin of another game, and I can't remember what it's called now. Is it here? No, but we'll come to it in a moment. It's basically... Oh, SWAT Siege is the other one, the reskin. You're basically on the screen, you're just jumping left to right trying to shoot things, but it's a brutal game and doesn't have a lot of variety in it. Gets quite boring quite quickly. Drag Racer USA. Now this is, needs a new protective wrap there. This is another one that I believe is just a reskin of D-Unit Drift Racer. Oh, that one doesn't have a manual, but I have got it with a manual, so I'm going to have to find that out in a minute. I'll keep that to the side for now. Empire of Atlantis is another dingo cartoon-based game. And there are quite a few of these. I believe may possibly be around 20 of them on the PS2. I'll do a count up later on. European Tennis Pro. Now this is also, along with Air Raid 3, the two games that were published, printed the most. And this is actually quite a decent game. Even as far as tennis games go on the PS2, some of the better produced games are still not as playable as this. It's not great, don't get me wrong, but it's not terrible. And if you're into your tennis games, then I would definitely recommend checking this one out. But yeah, this was another one that was reprinted and reprinting, so it was a very popular game. So yeah, and it's only cheap. Extreme Sprint 3010. Now this is a crazy game. It's interesting. It's not like an obstacle assault course sort of game, but you're running towards the screen, so you only get a short amount of time to react. The game is quite slow, but it's quite interesting. So yeah, if you've not seen this one before, I'd recommend checking that out. Fruitfall. Now there's actually two versions of Fruitfall on the PS2. One's by System 3 and the other one's by Phoenix Games. I can't actually find out why there's two versions of the same game, but there are differences. But in total, the System 3 one is better developed, but this one is a hell of a lot more playable. It's just more enjoyable overall. And I did have quite a lot of fun with this, and I've also got the System 3 one, which I just found quite boring, to be honest. But yeah, this one for some reason plays out a lot better, so if you do want to get Fruitfall on the PS2, I'd definitely go for the Phoenix version. Fairy Tales. Now this is my favourite PS2 Phoenix games. It's kind of a mix between a sort of an RPG, SimCity, and Sensible. No, not Cannon Fodder, all mixed in together. It's sort of a overhead. I don't know how to explain it really. I'm gonna do a full playthrough of this, but yeah, you start off with a little army, and you have to build your bases, and then you have to obviously defend your bases, and then you have to take over everything. But yeah, it's really interesting and moves and plays a little bit like Cannon Fodder, but then with your strategy in it as well. Makes it quite a really interesting game that you don't really see around much, and it's quite cheap, I believe it should be, and it's my personal favourite PS2 Phoenix games. Finkel's World, which I've got a British and an Italian copy there. This is a bizarre game. It's another one of the colour match games, but there's so many different options and so many different power-ups and things like that that I played this for about 3 hours and I still didn't have a clue what I was doing. But it's really, as far as a puzzle game goes, it's really nicely developed, really nicely presented. Just doesn't do a very good job of telling you what you're really supposed to be doing. I'm assuming that like it's an adaptation of some sort of game already out there, or might just be the rules from some other game out there, but man, I just couldn't figure it out. But it is quite interesting, quite expensive game as well. Right, next off we have G-Force, which is a water skiing game, and again, like the snowboarding game, this doesn't have a very great amount of content to it. It's not a very exciting game. It could have been a lot more. It's enjoyable for the time it takes to get through, which is about half an hour, but there's nothing you're really going to come back to. Girl Zone, this is one that has two different covers, so I'm assuming this was quite a popular game. It's basically a dress-up game and colour, makeup and stuff like that, aimed basically for girls. These type of games were popular on the Wii and the DS, so I'm sure Phoenix found a bit of success on the PS2 with them. Gecko Blaster, another pretty difficult game to find, and quite an interesting one. It's basically a breakout clone where you just bashing the bricks. I love games like this, so I do like this one. Gorilla Strike. Now this is a shoot 'em up. Now it's crazy to think that Phoenix released more shoot 'em ups on the PS2 than every other company put together that released shoot 'em ups. So that's quite an interesting thing to know. Unfortunately, none of them are very good, and this is one of them. This is Gorilla Strike, and you basically, the thing that lets it down is that the levels are far too long, and they just get a bit boring. I mean, me and my mate played this and we got through the first level without even moving. So, yeah, it could have been a lot better. Go-Kart Rally is a pretty cheesy racing game. One of the better racing games by Phoenix on the PS2, but suffers with clunky controls and stuff. But you'll have fun with this just by laughing at it. But yeah, quite interesting. Games Galaxy 2 is another difficult one to find. This is a collection of a load of games. There's 25 games on here. These are quite similar to the games that are on the one with 100 games on. A slightly better developed, but yeah, it's pretty much just another version of that. Hansel and Gretel. This is quite a difficult game to find, but it's just another one of the Dingo cartoon-based games. This has been shrink wrap sealed. I will eventually open it one day because that's not an official seal. But yeah, as it's just one of those cartoon-based games, I'm just not bothered getting around to it yet. Hoppy. This is an absolutely awesome game. It's a isometric puzzle platformer where you have to jump across the bricks and highlight them in order to make them complete and get through the level by revealing all the bricks, basically. I've done a full playthrough of this, which will be going on the channel very shortly. The only bad thing about this game, and I have got a few versions of this and can confirm it happens on every version of the disc, but after the first couple of levels, the music cuts out and it randomly pops back in at various points while you're playing. But yeah, it's a pretty good game. Actually, there's quite a few copies of this at the minute which are going for really cheap, because this is one of the rarer Phoenix games. But if you don't mind getting an Italian or an Australian copy, then there's quite a few cheap versions on eBay at the minute. Home Run. This is actually a very well made game, baseball game, and I believe I put footage on YouTube quite a few years ago, and I believe somebody did say that it was actually another game that had been reskinned with the Phoenix logos on. So I'll have to do a bit more research into that, but this is a really well developed game. So if you like your baseball games, I'd recommend checking this one out. Arbitrar Hamster Ball is a pretty fun game that's like Monkey Ball. It's obviously not as well developed, but it does play really well, and if you do like Monkey Ball, then I would recommend checking this one out. International League Soccer. Now this is one of the rarest Phoenix games out there, a game that most people don't even realise that Phoenix released. This was by Digital Bros and Taito, which you might be quite surprised to hear that Taito worked alongside with Phoenix at one point, and they brought this version of this to the PS2. This is also released by Taito on their own, but obviously this version is by Phoenix Games, and it's exactly the same game. There's no branding of Phoenix on it, that I can remember anyway. I'm pretty sure they just slapped their logo on the box and released it. Iron Chef. This is another one I've done a full playthrough of, and another one of the better Phoenix games. I had real fun playing this. It's pretty much a Burger Time rip-off where you have to run through the platforms and knock the vegetables down into a basket at the bottom. But yeah, I think it was 30 something levels. But yeah, I had quite fun doing this, so there's a full playthrough if you want to check that out. And then we have Jello, which Jello is pretty much the same as Monster Eggs, which we'll get to later. I've got footage of that on the channel. It's pretty much another one of those colour match games where you group them colours together and then click them and they all disappear. Yeah, it's quite an interesting game. It's quite a hard one to find, and I believe this was only released in Italy and Australia. Actually, it might have only been Italy. Yes, I think actually this is only an Italian release. If I'm wrong, I'll put it up on the screen now, but I'm pretty sure this was just Italian only. Next off, we have KO King. I love the cover for this game. I love the art style. Unfortunately, the game isn't that brilliant. I was having fun playing through it. I did a full playthrough of it. It took a few hours, but I was quite disappointed at the fact that it doesn't have an ending. There I have my backup copy there. Only have backups if you own the original. Kiddies Party Pack. This is another Dingo puzzle-based game. Actually, I'm not sure if this one is Dingo. I don't think this one actually has a cartoon. No, I don't think it does. I think this is just a collection of all the other ones they did thrown together. I don't think this one actually has a cartoon on it. Scene Maker. Oh yeah, that's the difference, the Scene Maker. Yeah, and it just throws together all the different ones that they released, but without the cartoons. Kids Sports Basketball, pretty fun little sports game. I think originally this could be an Atari license, I'm not 100% sure, but it's a pretty well made game, pretty fun to play. And again, the same with Kids Sports Ice Hockey. I had quite a fun time playing this, and I would like to do more. Legend of Hercules, another one of the puzzle games, and I believe this is by Dingo with the cartoon. Pretty sure, yep, cartoon movie. London Cab Challenge, Phoenix Games answer to Crazy Taxi. The design of the game is quite dull, but the game itself, albeit cheesy and clunky, I don't actually mind this. I mean, let's be real, Crazy Taxi is only fun for a short while because it doesn't take long before you realise you're just doing exactly the same thing over and over again. This does offer a little bit more, but it's just not as well developed. But yeah, you're never going to call it your favourite game, but if you like this sort of thing, check it out because it's only cheap. Yeah, we have Legend of Camelot, which again is another puzzle game with a cartoon. And then we have one of the rarest games on the PS2 itself, Monster Eggs. There aren't a great amount of copies known out there. I think there are less than 40 copies to date that are known to exist, and it's another colour match game. This one was only released in Italy, and it's quite, to be honest, it's not as expensive as it was because somebody found a box full of them. There's 25 in a box, and put them on eBay extremely cheap. They were around £100, and I was offered £1,000 for this one not long before, and I know a few other people would have been well happy to go past £500, so the person who put these on eBay really did himself out of a few pounds there. But on the other hand, it meant that a lot of collectors finally got to own it for a cheap price. Mambo, another pretty difficult one to find, and a pretty interesting game. I tried to do a full playthrough of this. I think I got to something like level 31 and gave up because it was killing me, killing my brain off. This level is, I mean, this game is so intense. Like, you've got to work out the path to move to get to the exit, which seems simple enough, but then you have to avoid the enemies and obstacles, which doesn't seem too bad. But then everything changes with every step you take, so you can spend like 2-3 hours just trying to figure out one level, and that's just early on in the game as well, but it is really interesting. So yeah, if you like puzzle games, then I'd definitely recommend checking this one out. Maniac Mole, this is a fun little platformer game. Not a lot to it, but I really enjoyed playing it. I think this was the first Phoenix Games game that I did a full playthrough of. It took me about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and there's not many platform games on the PS2, so there's not a lot to compare it with, but I enjoyed it. It plays a bit like a typical 8-bit game really, as opposed to 32-bit or whatever bit the PS2 is. But I had fun with it. Don't expect a lot from it, but you know. Mighty Milan is another cartoon-based game. So not a lot to say. Moto X Maniac is obviously a motocross game. To be honest, it's been that long since I played this, but from what I remember, the controls are really loose, and you just tap one direction, you fly off all over the place. But it could have been a lot more, but it's not terrible once you get the hang of the controls. You can sort of fight your way into first position, but it's not a great game in comparison to the other types of motocross games out there. Mouse Police. I remember when I originally saw this game, I thought, yeah, this is going to be like some sort of Mousetrap rip-off or something like that, and I was really interested in getting it, and then when I finally got it and realised it was another cartoon game, I was a bit upset. Monster Trucks Extreme. Now, this is a strange one. This is the Phoenix Games version, obviously, but this game was also released by Metro 3D under the name Monster Trucks Arena Extreme Edition, and they also released it again under another very similar title, just mixing around the words. I think it might have been Limited Edition or something like that. But they're pretty much all the same game, and I'm going to do a comparison video because I've got all 3 versions. So I'll do a comparison video so you can see exactly what the differences are, if there are any. Mythmaker's Orbs of Doom. Now, this is a game that I did a full playthrough of not so long ago, a few weeks ago, and man, I really enjoyed it. Another Monkey Ball clone. I really enjoyed it, but man, some of the levels were just extreme. Like, you're fighting physics that you're unaware of, like you'll be going what you think is a flat surface, but there's actually a gradient on it, and you've got to fight against it with the controls. And man, it's a game that'll put you under your tests, I'm telling you. But yeah, really interesting, and glad that I did finish it finally. I think the last level took me about 3 hours to do on its own. Mythmaker Superkart GP. Now, another Mythmaker's game, but this is like a Mario Kart rip-off. It's not too bad, actually. It's not great, but it's got your power-ups and stuff like that. The controls are not brilliant, but they're good enough. They're easy to get into, and I'm sure kids would have loved this game. Doesn't take a lot to get through it all, but it's fun, and you probably will come back to it as a 2-player sort of thing if it interests you. But yeah, one of the better racing games by Phoenix there. Next up we have Off-Road Extreme. This is another racing game by Phoenix, kind of like buggy racing. This is very similar to a truck racing game that they did, which is possibly in here. I'm not sure if we got there yet. But yeah, it's not brilliant, but it's not terrible. It's alright, and it's got a bit of a selection of different vehicles, albeit they're all exactly the same speeds and handling. But yeah, they did try with this one. Ocean Commander. This is one of the most well known for being one of the rare Phoenix games, and it is a shoot 'em up twin stick shooter, and it's quite interesting, but being twin stick, it does mess with my head. Like, I can't get to grips with it no matter how many times I play. A bit of a cobweb there. But it is quite an interesting game, but again does suffer with extremely long levels. I think it would have been much more enjoyable if I just shortened the levels down and made more levels. But yeah, actually, I'm not sure how many levels there are. But yeah, it's a decent game. Here we have Obliterate. I did a full playthrough of this not long ago. It's actually quite an interesting little game. It's just like loads of little mini games, a bit like, well, not like WarioWare, but that sort of thing. You get a set path to choose as well. There are quite a few spelling mistakes and hit detection errors in this game that I found out because I've played through it a couple of times. But it is pretty interesting game, pretty cheap game, and if you like just games where you don't have to pay much attention to them, I recommend checking it out. It's nothing brilliant, but you know, if you like your cheesy little games, then it's worth checking out. Pinocchio is another one of the cartoon-based games. Not 100% sure if there is. Yeah, watching cartoons. Yeah, this one's sealed, so I haven't actually opened it, but yeah, it's the same sort of thing. Peter Pan, another cartoon game. Not sure if this does have a cartoon on it, but this is well known because, see this here? Well, apparently I hate the Kingdom Hearts franchise, so I don't know, but apparently that is stolen from Kingdom Hearts. And there is a story out there about Phoenix Games getting sued by Disney for stealing that artwork. I'm not sure if that is completely legitimate, but if anyone out there does know any info on that, I would love to hear some ins and outs of it. Power Volleyball. This is quite an interesting little game. It's not very well developed. It's not badly developed, but there's not a lot to it. Oh, bubble wrap. But yeah, as far as volleyball games go, it's okay. It's not too bad. Gameplay isn't too bad. Yeah, it's not great. Pro Biker 2. Now, this was a game that took me ages to find, and I couldn't wait to play it. It's a BMX sort of off-road assault course, sort of BMX-y type game. Unfortunately, when I came to play it, there is video footage on the channel. When I came to play it, oh man, it suffers terribly with the controls. Like, you are completely all over the place. It's near impossible to come first or come second or anywhere. So, unfortunately, it wasn't what I wanted or what I expected. Puzzle Party, here's another one. This one just has 10 games, which we've seen them all on the other multi-games that Phoenix did, just dressed up a little differently. But yeah, this is, I'm not actually sure, can't remember actually playing this, but yeah, I think there's like Tetris clones and mostly like sort of dodge games, I think. I don't know, there's footage on the channel if you want to check it out. RC Toy Machines. Now this was quite an interesting little game actually. I did have quite fun playing this, but it got to a point where I just couldn't seem to beat the computer anymore no matter how much I tried. It wasn't a game of skill where you're racing to the best racer. It was like you're racing to pray to God that one little slight thing doesn't go wrong and you end up last. But it was quite interesting and a decent little I suppose sort of a Micro Machines sort of rip-off game in 3D. Retro. Now this is another multi-disc game. There's 8 games on here, and these, I don't know what they were trying to do with this, but it is quite dire. There's hardly any colour in the game, and it like, I don't know, I'm quite speechless as to what this was all about really. It's as if they were trying to take off Atari games but vamp them up to look like better than Atari, but they vamp them up that much that they just look like terrible new age games, if that makes any sense. But I was quite upset because I was hoping that, looking at the cover when I was seeking out this game, I was thinking, oh yeah, you're going to be some little robot going through some retro world or something, but no, nothing to do with that robot at all. Road Rage 3. Now, if you play this game, you're pretty much going to end up with road rage. I painstakingly did a full playthrough of this game. Now, I don't know if you know, but PS2 pads, the more you push the control pad down, the more responsive the pad is, and there's quite a lot of games that took advantage of that. Unfortunately, Road Rage 3 feels like you need to smash your control pad with a hammer to go over 70 miles an hour, and man, your fingers, or at least mine did, were in pain after I finished this game. So yeah, it was a shame because it was a pretty interesting little game, but yeah, it hurt. Robin Hood the Siege 2 is another oh no, I was going to say it's a reskin of SWAT Siege, but it's not. This is just, it's kind of a rip-off of Chicken Shoot, I think it's called, where you just scroll left and right on the screen and shoot things that pop up, and it is quite terrible that this was made game. It's quite terrible that the Chicken Shoot one. In fact, I think this might be longer. You might get more gameplay out of this one than the Chicken Shoot one, but neither of them are worthy of being a game. Saint and Sinner. One of the most difficult Phoenix games to find. The rarest ones. At the time of doing this, there is a few copies on eBay at the minute. I think they're all priced between about £80 to £150, which is a pretty decent price considering that's been around that price for about the last 7 or 8 years. So the price on this hasn't really changed considering it is quite a rare game. And this is another one of the colour match games. And again, I love the artwork on this. But yeah, I mean, as far as price goes for comparison to gameplay value, it's probably not worth it, no. The game's, I mean, it's just a basic puzzle game. It's quite fun, but, you know, it's not £150 fun. But for the completionist like me, you have to do these things. Search and Destroy is another shoot 'em up, which is the one I was trying to figure out earlier. Whatever it was. No, whatever that shoot 'em up was, as mentioned before. This is just a reskin of that, basically. SWAT Siege, this one is also the reskin of, yes, I'm going to find this one here, because I know it's here. Is it here? No, it's not. Yeah, well, this is another reskin anyway, of Dead Gym, that was it, reskin of Dead Gym. Sniper Assault is also a reskin of Dead Gym. Snow Rider. This is a better snowboarding game than the other one, but once again, there's nothing to it. No one to race, no one to do anything. 3 game modes, 3 slopes, and that's your lot. Snow White 7 Clever Boys is another one, puzzle game. Not sure if there's, yep, there's a cartoon on this one. Son of the Lion King, again, another one, puzzle game with a cartoon. Speed Machines 3. This is a Micro Machines ripoff, and this was also released in a big box version, which I have got. And this is actually a pretty interesting little game. There's only 10 levels to it, and they're not exactly difficult, but I had real fun with this, and I wish there were more levels, because this could have been like a really good game on the PS2. Like, even though the graphical quality isn't amazing, it's still pretty decent, and if they put like 30 plus levels and some, you know, extra little bonuses in, this could have been a pretty decent selling PS2 game, and one that would have maybe stopped Phoenix from being in that sort of budget market. Speedboat GP is a speedboating game, which again, like the water skiing game, doesn't have a great amount to it, but I did enjoy playing this one. Steam Express. Now this is a crazy little game, and I'm planning on doing a full playthrough of this because I love games like this. I used to play games like this on the Spectrum, where you just basically have to make the track go before the train comes, otherwise the train's going to crash. But yeah, this is quite a hard one to find as well. But a pretty interesting game, pretty pricey. The Italian versions are cheaper than the British version. The British version doesn't pop up much. But yeah, I don't know if the value is worth the gameplay, but I like it, so maybe you might. Superbike GP. Now this is a pretty well developed motorbike racing game. It's quite difficult as well. And then I know it says here there's 10 different tracks, but I'm pretty sure there's only 5, and then it reverses them, mirrors them. Yeah, it's a pretty decent little game, and again, one of the better ones by Phoenix Games. So if you like motorbike games, check it out. But as I've warned you, it takes a bit to get used to, but once you do, you'll be flying through it. Space Rebellion. This is another one that was the same as Air Raid, another reskin. Skateboard Madness Extreme Edition. There is no normal edition, and I'm pretty sure that this was originally going to be called Transworld Skateboarding, which a lot of people think is a lost game out there that was never released, but I'm pretty sure that they just renamed it Skateboard Madness. We'll be doing an article on this further on down the line because I have some proof to suggest that that is right, but it's still open for debate. It's a pretty bad skateboarding game. It could have been a hell of a lot better, but the controls are a bit clunky and it lets it down, but it could have been a decent contender on the PS2. Street Warrior, I tried to do a full playthrough of this, and man, it drove me mental. I think I got to level 7, and I think there's 9 levels. But man, this is a street brawling game. You just move left to right, beating everyone up. It's pretty clunky. You can do moves to people that you're not even touching, and I found myself running around the track trying to run away from people just to try and get power-ups. It could have been pretty interesting, but way too difficult for what it is. And then Roller Coaster Funfair. This is quite a funny little game because it doesn't have a roller coaster in it. There's Crazy Golf and some other little mini games. The Crazy Golf in this is actually quite fun. I do like playing the golf in this one. But as for the rest of the games, they're not brilliant. I mean, you'll probably play them once or twice and that's it. But if you like crazy golf games, mini golf games, then you might play this a few times. But yeah, there's absolutely no roller coaster in it whatsoever. So no idea why they came up with the title for that. They were probably just like, yeah, let's just do it for the lols. Yeah. Right, now we're down to the last few. Shadow of Ganymede is our next one. This again is another reskin shoot 'em up. I don't think I've actually played this one. I've got 2 copies of it, but they're both sealed. So I'm not 100% sure if I've played it, but I'm pretty sure it's just the same thing over again as the other shoot 'em up that I mentioned earlier. The Toys Room. Unfortunately, it's just another puzzle game with a cartoon. Turbo Trucks. Now this, it's cheesy. There's not a great amount to it, but I actually had fun playing it. All the trucks are exactly the same speed. Even the computer trucks, you're all exactly the same speed. So the only way you win in a level is to cut corners and not crash. Now, I found that entertaining. So it's a couple of quid game. So, you know, if you like a laugh, check it out. Urban Constructor, another quite difficult one to find. And this is not the sort of game I expected it to be. You're basically in an area and you've got to try and cut up the other player by building roads across, and then that'll turn it all into buildings. It's not a new idea for a game. I have played things like this in the day, like the Spectrum and stuff. But man, it was crazy to see on the PS2. It could have been a lot more, but it's just in your face way too soon, and it gets a bit irritating. Vegas Casino 2. I don't even think there's a Vegas Casino 1. But yeah, it's just a collection of, there's roulette, there's slots, and there's a couple of table games on there. If I remember right, you've got the aim of making £1 million and then you win. And I believe I did it within about 3 bets on the, I think it was the Keno table. I didn't even have a clue what I was doing. Wacky Zoo GP, another quite hard one to find. Pretty interesting little racing game because the colours in this, just like that crazy golf game, which I believe does include the same character in here somewhere. But the colours used in this are so bright and in your face that, man, it's just hypnotic. The gameplay isn't that great. It's another one of those cut corners in your wing games. But yeah, it's interesting nonetheless. World Wrestling Championship is Phoenix's attempt at a wrestling game, and they do a good job? No. It's pretty much a reskin and an adaptation of the KO King boxing game. With this one, you've got a bit more freedom of movement and a few more moves, but you can still do them to somebody who's over the other side of the ring, and it does make more comical value than gameplay value. But yeah, I like having a laugh at this one. Extreme Speed is a game that it's not too bad. I wouldn't call it a contender for racing games, but it's one of the better Phoenix games. It does take a bit to get used to the controls, but overall it's not terrible, but it's not awesome. You're not going to compare it to Need for Speed or anything like that. Extreme Quads is a, did I do a full playthrough of this? I'm not sure if I did a full playthrough of it or if I just tested all the tracks. But yeah, it was quite another one of those where you touch the control pad and you fly all over the place. So yeah, not the greatest racing game out there. But yeah, if you want to laugh and to put yourself through some pain and misery, check it out. And finally, Capasa Neng. This was a Spanish-only game. At one point, there were just abundances of this in Spain for sale, and now it seems like somebody's been buying them all up to try and make it seem like it's more rarer than it is. But it is an absolute bizarre game. It's another mini-games game. Now, Neng, this dude here, I'm sure every Spanish person is going to know who he is because he's a TV personality. He's just completely off his head. Like, he's the sort of Dom Jolly meets Steve-O from Jackass, and he's just nuts. He's sort of, I guess the French have Remy Gaillard. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce his name, but he's a similar sort of thing, but Neng is more of a comedian and just like, whoa, he's way out there, seriously. And this is just a crazy collection of weird mini games. I've tried to complete it a few times because you have to get through each level to get through to the next. It's not like it plays like a game show, but you have to do everything right to get through to the next level, and I can't get that far on it no matter how many times I play. But it is quite interesting and very, very weird. Now there are 4 more games we're going to go through now, which are PS2 compatible games that Phoenix released, which will take us up to the 103 titles. So I'll just grab those. I almost forgot White Van Racer, which is the last PS2 game. Now I did a full playthrough of this. It's a pretty mediocre game, but it gained a lot of attention back in the day. Just because of its name, basically. I remember it being talked about on, what was that TV program with Violet and Andy Crane, was it? Can't think what it was called. Bad Influence. I remember them talking about it on there, but I think it was the PC version they were talking about. But yeah, pretty funny little game, but not super duper great in the gameplay. Right, now we move on to the DVD games. Now these were DVD games obviously that were compatible with the PS2, because obviously the PS2 can play DVDs. So even though they're not official PS2 games, they are classed as part of the PS2 releases by Phoenix. So yeah, this is Who Shot Johnny Rock, and these games are all on Laserdisc as well. As well as many, many other things. Space Ace. I say these are quite hard to find because Digital Leisure pretty much rented the license out for these to everybody they could. I remember Mad Dog McGree, I'm pretty sure it was this one. I'm pretty sure this was free on the front of a magazine. Not this version, but in a little card slip case. I'm sure at one point they gave it away free on the front of a magazine. Yeah, and Dragon's Lair, the last one. Everybody knows what Dragon's Lair is. Right. Now, there were rumours to be 2 other DVD games that Phoenix released, but I can find absolutely no proof that they actually do exist. So I'm unsure about that, and until I find them, they don't exist. But there we have it. That is all 103 releases by Phoenix Games on the PS2. 99 actual PS2 games and 4 DVD compatible games. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that video. Yeah, like and subscribe. If you want to know any info about Phoenix, just shoot me a message. And please check out the Phoenix Memorial website over at Phoenix Games Limited or phoenixgamesltd.com, which was an original Phoenix Games domain for the UK. And yeah, I'll be back with some more Phoenix Games videos soon. If you did work for Phoenix Games or know anybody that did work for Phoenix Games, please drop me a comment down below and I will get back to you. Or you can contact me over on the Retro Detect website or on Twitter. It's probably the most active place I'll be on. Over at Retro Detect. So come and follow me there, or find some way of getting in touch with me, because honestly I'd love to do some stories and stuff on Phoenix Games. So yeah, thanks for watching. See you on the next video. Take care and toodaloo.